Could the secret weapon to the TCU pass rush this season be somebody coming off the injured list from last year?
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We've got fall camp notes really all show long today. Sonny Dyke said a lot of things. 12 guys competing for a job along the offensive line. I'll let you know if I think that's fact or fiction. Possibly a change and who the starting running back could be in the season opener against North Carolina. We'll break that down. But we start today discussing the TCU defense and one player that's coming back from an injury. And I haven't really talked a lot about him this off season. And Paul Oyewale. And Paul is a redshirt freshman a few years back, was one of the bright spots on the team. And that was a year that went awry pretty quickly. They ended up going 5-7. He had 3 sacks on the year, 23 tackles, 12 of those being solo tackles, and emerged really from the beginning of the year in the Colorado game as someone who could rush the passer. And expectations for him going into last season were sky high. I would say of the defensive players that were coming back that we thought could benefit from Andy Avalos and a new scheme and sort of starting fresh, Paul Oyewale was one of the first players that came out of your mouth when you were like, this dude could really do some big things as an edge rusher, as a defensive end in a defense that emphasizes getting after the quarterback. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because he spent the entire season injured. And TCU was kind of coy about the injury at first. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe they just didn't know the extent of it. But it was like a lower body injury, and he was working on the bike, and they were trying to see if they could get him back. At first, it was like, well, he's going to sit out the Stanford game because he's not 100%, and we don't want to get him hurt anymore. And then, well, he's not going to play against Long Island for obvious reasons. But then eventually, it was actually this is an Achilles issue, and he's going to have to go get surgery. So Paul spoke with the media after practice. I believe that was on Saturday. First thing I'll say is he looks like he's in great shape. And he gave what you would expect, like pretty typical encouraging answers. He's excited to be back on the field with the team. Last year was really tough, just staying on the sidelines watching. He likes the Andy Avalos defense. He enjoys the versatility of it. He's ready to get back out there and play and help the run defense as well, which was a huge problem for TCU last season. I've sort of tempered expectations for him. And the only reason I do that is he was a bright spot in that redshirt freshman season, but he still only had 3 sacks. One of those sacks was against Colorado. 2 of them were against Houston. And that was the extent of him getting the QB that year. Now, he was a young player. And as fans, as media people, I think we were excited because he was a young player that showed flashes, that showed an ability to stand his ground in the run game, get after the passer. And the thought was, as we tend to do in college football, we say, oh, that guy did some positive things. He looks like a big-time player. Now he gets an entire offseason to develop, understand the details better, physically get stronger, get bigger. Well, he missed that year. Like he missed an entire season, and he's coming back now healthy. And he said this in his media session. He was like, I only played high school football for 1 year. So there's a lot to work with as far as potential goes. A guy that only played 1 year of high school football immediately steps on the field as a redshirt. But going into this year, my thought was, well, you missed an entire season. Now you're going to have to get back into playing shape. Will he be ready at the beginning of the year? But I will say this on a positive note, and this is why I'm excited about potentially having him back full go. You don't necessarily need Paul to start. Now, if he shows in fall camp like he's the guy and you just can't keep him off the field, that's awesome. But I was saying the other day when I was talking about the pass rushers and the defensive line in general, I feel like your starters are pretty set. If you have 5 guys across the defensive front, I think you're talking about Zach Chapman, Marcus Deal, Ansel Denbu, and Devin Deal. Devin's technically a linebacker. He's going to drop into coverage sometimes. He's got different roles. But for the sake of talking about the pass rush, I'll include him there. Those 5 guys, I trust. I think they're going to do good things. The question for TCU is, behind those players, who can play? Connor Lindgren was a guy at defensive tackle that gave them some good snaps at times last season. He's had some more time to get into a place mentally and physically where hopefully he can contribute. Tristan Johnson is a player that has stood out in camp in the spring and in the fall. Coaching staff has mentioned him. Sonny Dykes specifically singled him out as like, hey, this is a dude that's really turning some heads. But he hasn't played a collegiate snap. So I think we have to keep that in mind. However, could he give you some good, I was going to say minutes like his basketball, but could he give you some good snaps and give somebody else a breather? I think that's a possibility. You went and got some JUCO guys and Perry Cole and Kelton Mickle, who you really like. But there's a lot of what ifs there, right? It's like, hey, this guy, he's shown some flashes. This guy's young. We hope that he's ready to go. Paul is more of a proven player. It's funny that I say that because I spent the first 5 minutes talking about how he's not. But I think you understand what I mean. He's more proven than some of the guys that I talked about. And he doesn't have to be thrown into the fire right away. But if he can come in specific passing situations to give Zach Chapman some more time, the fresher your guys up front are, when we're talking about defensive linemen, the better they're going to be. And this is another piece to the puzzle. This TCU defense is not just about your starting 11 improving and understanding things better and making plays. You have to have some guys that can rotate in as well. And Paul really seems to fit the mold of someone who could do that. And again, if it's just obvious, like in practice, this dude is the best and we need him on the field, then you can make that change. Or if as he gets more acclimated to things, gets healthier, maybe it's going to really click for him in week 3 or 4. And it's not going to be against North Carolina, but possibly down the road. Well, now you add some depth to a spot where you need it. So watch out for Paul Oyewale as just a guy who can make an impact. I haven't talked a lot about him because, one, I didn't know what his health level was. They were so secretive about his injury last year. And I understand there's, privacy and things like that, but they didn't really give us a timetable. And suddenly it was like, hey, he's actually out for the season. But if he's at 100% and he doesn't have that pressure on him to be the main guy right away, then I think there's a lot of good possibilities with what you could do as far as getting him in the rotation so he can make an impact on a week-to-week basis. Some other things that were said at fall camp that stood out to me, and we'll continue this conversation in segment 2. Sonny Dykes, and this is from Steven Johnson, 4-Star Telegram, beat reporter for TCU, does a great job covering the Frogs. Dykes says there are 12 guys competing for starting spots on the offensive line. TCU, these were your starters in practice. They went with Ryan Hughes, Cade Bennett, Colton Deary, Carson Bruno, and Ben Taylor Whitfield with the ones. Sonny said the starting group remains undetermined. Okay. That's interesting news. There's going to be a lot of things said over the next few weeks. I think part of my job here is to help you decipher what's real and what's not. I don't believe there's 12 guys competing for a starting spot on the offensive line. I don't believe that. I think there's maybe one battle, and that's Carson Bruno and Remington Strickland. But I don't think there's 12 guys that have a chance to be your starters against North Carolina. If I had to guess today, I would go with the 5 guys that were listed there. That means Ryan Hughes is your left tackle, Cade Bennett your left guard, Colton Deary is your center, Carson Bruno is your right guard. Ben Taylor Whitfield is your right tackle. And to me, the offensive line, like the success of it, is going to come down to these young tackles. Can Ryan Hughes and Ben Taylor Whitfield hold their own? I am really optimistic about the interior of this offensive line. I think the Colton Deary move to center is good for him. He sounded really excited about it when I talked to him at Big 12 Media Days. It's a position he's played before. He's familiar with it. Cade Bennett's coming back from an injury, but I feel like he's going to be really solid. And he was, I mean, we kind of forget this, but he was the dude they were most excited about when they got him from San Diego State. Before that, he was at Oklahoma State. Carson Bruno, rumor is he's fully healthy. He wasn't healthy last year. So I think that, along with just another year in the system coming over from Law Tech, he should be in better shape. Your two tackles. Ryan Hughes impressed the coaching staff so much last year as a true freshman. They're like, we got to find a way to get him on the field. Ben Taylor Whitfield has played a lot in his first 2 seasons on campus. Both of them are going to have to hold up. And as much as we lamented the run game last season, that O-line was good in pass protection. Like, they did a solid job keeping Josh Hoover clean in the pocket. So that is an area where they're going to have to replicate that success for this passing game to be successful again. And that's a lot of pressure on your young tackles to be good right away. When we come back, did Sonny Dykes hint at a change on the depth chart at running back? It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Before we do that, though, we need to talk about one of our great sponsors, 5 Hour Energy. Man, whether you're out on the golf course trying to get 18 holes in, or you're just at your job and it's 1:30, 2:30 in the afternoon, and you're like, man, I'm dragging here. I don't know if I can get through the day. 5 Hour Energy will help you do that. 5hourenergy.com. It's not just in convenience stores now, even though it's there on the shelf like it always has been. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your first order. Again, that's LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order if you go to 5hourenergy.com today. The number 5hourenergy.com. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, but it's there for you. One-time code, Locked On Golf, 5 Hour Energy. I'll help you make it through the day, make it through a round of golf. 5hourenergy.com. Another comment from Sonny after practice this weekend that caught my eye. He says he's unsure of how the running back battle will play out, but he did mention John Denman opened some eyes during the spring. He also said Jeremy Payne was the most consistent running back, and he also said that at Big 12 Media Days. Okay, so this was interesting to me because, I mean, if John Denman's making things happen, that's awesome. I really feel the more that this goes on and the more that Sonny talks, I think it's wide open who's going to play running back. I have been, for the last few months, pretty consistent in saying I thought it was a battle between Nate Palmer and Jeremy Payne. If I had to pick right now, I would say Nate Palmer. But he mentioned Jeremy Payne being the most consistent running back last season. And Steven Johnson's right. At Big 12 Media Days, I asked him about the running back room. And at that time, he said Nate Palmer was someone who really emerged during the spring. But then he added the caveat that Jeremy Payne was the most consistent running back last year. So I'm just kind of confused. And it's possible they just don't know. And they're not even going to know when the season starts against North Carolina. And I'm fine with that. I mean, last season, I was pretty adamant they needed to make some sort of decision. And they followed my advice and named Cam Cook the starter. And then, well, that didn't work. But they were 100% behind Cam Cook when the season started. I feel like going into this year, I would be surprised if they have that type of confidence in one running back. The other thing is, now it's the first couple of days of fall camp, but I'm here to overreact to everything. I'm doing a daily podcast on TCU football. So we're taking all the information we can get. Stephen Johnson also mentioned that Kavorian Barnes was getting first team reps. Now, I talked with Javi Cardenas, who covers UTSA football for Rivals. And I was like, give me the story on Kavorian Barnes, because he had 2 really good years at UTSA. Am I saying that right? For some reason, it sounds weird. I swear I'm not crazy, guys. I don't know what's going on with me today, but you know what I mean. The Roadrunners. How about that? And then his last season there, he was non-existent. And he was like, well, he's a great dude, did everything the coaching staff asked him to, dealt with some injuries last season, and then kind of fell in the doghouse. There were some young guys there that showed up and were impressive. And so he fell out of the starting rotation. And that's fine. It makes sense. I think Kavorian Barnes can make an impact on this team. I feel like it could be a short yardage back or a change pace guy. I would be very surprised. I understand the reasons that Javi gave me. But if we're talking about a guy that fell out of the rotation at a group of 5 school, okay, if it was injuries, it was injuries. But still, like, even when he was apparently healthy enough to play, he wasn't getting those snaps. Now he's going to come be the starter at TCU. I don't see that happening. But I think he could make something happen. Trent Battle's still around. And I like Trent. I think he does things well. Now he's talking about John Denman. And yeah, all of this could just be kind of like coaching smokescreen that we see and gamesmanship. But usually when we're talking about that, I mean, I never want to overestimate how paranoid coaches can be. I get it. They don't want to give anybody any sort of advantage. Typically, when we talk about gamesmanship like that, we're talking about quarterbacks, right? Like, okay, you don't want to name a starter. A couple of years back, when it was Chandler and Max battling it out for the job, Sonny was like, well, actually, we got 3 guys that could play. I think all 3 of these guys could play. And Sam Jackson, they were talking about having a special package for him or something like that. Well, the reality was Chandler won the job. They shouldn't really want to announce it. And we all know how that played out in the end. But I don't have a great feel right now. I tell you guys this. I'm always going to be honest with you. I don't come up here and try to just say things for the heck of it or be an expert in something that I'm not. I'm going to stick with Nate Palmer because I believe that. But he keeps saying like Jeremy Payne was the most consistent running back last year. Well, you would think if that was the case, then they would have more energy and enthusiasm for him being the starter. I just worry about too many people trying to take one job. And again, going back to quarterbacks, it's like that old adage, you've got 2 quarterbacks, you got none. I don't think that's totally true with running backs. I feel like you can have 2 guys who complement each other well, and especially in this day and age, when we talk about the way that teams run offenses, I mean, there's not a lot of workhorse backs left anymore. There's not a lot of Emmitt Smiths out there that are carrying the ball 30 times a game. There's a few, but most teams at the college level and at the NFL level, they're working, 2 different players in on a weekly basis. But we're not talking about 2. We're still talking about like 5 guys that are competing for this job. It just concerns me. And maybe it is as simple as Sonny's just kind of throwing people off and saying, well, yeah, this dude might be the starter. Or, hey, today John Denman turns some heads. Yesterday it was Nate Palmer. The day before that it was Kavorian Barnes. And we've got a number of different players that could fill that role. Could you have a running back by committee the first couple weeks of the season and give these guys chances to impress? Sure. But I feel like if we're talking about a run game that's supposed to improve and take a step forward, one thing that could really help is if you have a clear and defined, at least clear and defined roles for a couple of these guys so that they know they're going to get the lion's share of the work. When we come back, which young wide receiver is emerging? That's next here on Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. If you need tickets to a Rangers game, to an Astros game, to a TCU football game, it's coming up. We're under a month until kickoff now. Download the Gametime app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I love the Gametime app. This is real for me. I mean, yeah, it's an ad, but I'm telling you, I use the Gametime app. It's easy. Few clicks and you've got tickets on the app on your phone. It's very simple to navigate. They show you a picture of what you're going to be looking at from your seat when you sit down. There's no hidden fees. There's fees like everything else. But they tell you what the fees are up front. So you don't get to the checkout and you're like, wait, why am I suddenly paying $40 more than I thought? That doesn't happen on the Gametime app. Download it today. Code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. Last thing before we get out of here today, and man, it's so good to have like football notes to talk about. We're not that far from kickoff. We've made it to August. Congratulate yourself. You made it to August. September 1st will be here soon enough. It's all happening, folks. We're excited about it. TCU's got a number of young wide receivers that have talent, man. Braylon James coming up from Notre Dame last offseason. Made a little bit of an impression in the bowl game. Could he step up, right? Terry Shelton, Ed Small. There's a number of dudes who could step in and make things happen. But Josh Hoover dropped a name in his media session that I've heard some rumblings about, but it was interesting to see him single this guy out. He says Duzi Ezukama could fill the role Eric McAllister served last year. McAllister was the wide receiver version of a sixth man, but still finished with over 700 yards. So he said, this could be the guy that is sort of your first off the bench type of player and is there to catch the ball. That's not who I would have predicted or guessed, but you know, the great thing about sports, the great thing about football, you get out there and compete. Like we can do all these projections and predictions, and I'm still going to do that. But then the season starts, the practices start, and somebody's going to emerge as a player. And good for Doozy coming out and making things happen and showing up, giving himself a chance to be, you know, an option as kind of a first off the bench type of guy, rotate in with Jordan Dwyer and Eric McAllister and Joseph Banjack. Bright future for him. Sort of a random note, but frog related. NFL training camp. I saw a story on the Chicago Bears website, their official website, about JP Richardson. And JP is having a really good training camp with the Bears. Went undrafted, but had a great catch in the first practice that they posted on social media, and just every day is making things happen. He said in the piece it'll be an uphill battle for him to make the roster just because there's a lot of numbers in that wide receiver room, but he's trying to do everything he can every day to show that he should be there long term. And he also said he'd be willing to do anything on special teams. Now, we saw during the year last season, I mean, he was punt returner, had that huge punt return against Kansas, had some other good moments. So he can do that. But he also was like, I don't mind running down on kickoff and popping somebody in the mouth. He's just a football player, really savvy player. And I'm not shocked that he's doing well because he was open a lot, moved the chains, reliable guy. But nice to see that he's making some things happen. And soon enough, preseason games will be here and he'll have a chance to hopefully continue to show that. And if not, make it with the Bears, their active roster, there's a practice squad, or if you get cut, if you do some good things and earn a good reputation among the coaching staff, maybe somebody else looks over and says, you know what? We didn't see it during the draft process, but now we see it getting here, and let's figure it out and make some things happen. We'll be here all week long. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. I want to get to 1,500 subscribers before the season kicks off, and I think we're like 17 away. So that seems doable. Or you can subscribe and listen on your favorite podcast platform because it's Locked on Horned Frogs, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Talk to you Tuesday, everybody.